Recording.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's panel discussion entitled Managing Talent During COVID-19, IO and HR Perspectives. My name is Dr. Elliot Lasson, Graduate Program Director of UMBC's Masters of IO Psychology program. I'm really honored and privileged to share with you a deep and broad knowledge base of thought leaders taken from public, private, and consulting sectors to address this topic. There's much to talk about from a retrospective vantage point dating back to early 2020, as well as the here and now. I think that I can speak for the panel when I say that as PhDs in IO, we often reflect back and realize that graduate school never prepared us for certain parts of professional practice. While that has always been the case, this past year has been that observation on steroids, not just for our field, but about life in general all over the world. So tonight I will facilitate our conversation, and I'm looking forward to learning myself. We know that the dark cloud that COVID has cast all over the world, but in an ironic sort of way, the silver lining is that virtual forums such as the one tonight have gone mainstream, becoming a quite acceptable platform to share thought leadership from across locations. One thing that I've learned about technology during the pandemic is to always have backup, and if somehow there's some sort of catastrophic failure on my end, my colleague, Dr. Alyssa Abad, will keep things moving. Thank you, Alyssa. And I also thank and recognize Karina Jenkins for really setting up the infrastructure for tonight. Answer the questions that I will pose to the panel. We will see if we have time for some audience questions. It would be best if you include your questions in the chat throughout the session that we can address some of them at the end. For those interested in staying on the call for part two, there will be a brief overview of the UMBC Masters in IO program. Now to introduce our panel. Dr. Kelsey Klein is a talent analytics professional and ambassador. She's currently the head of HR research and data science in the people analytics function at Intel. Since receiving her PhD in IO from the University of Akron, she's focused her career on deriving talent insights through research and analytics. Kelsey holds a deep belief that the people make the organization, and her role is to help the organization use data and social science research methods to better understand employees and their needs, to drive mutually beneficial outcomes. Kelsey is also adjunct professor at Portland State, where she teaches applied IO analytics at the graduate level. On a side note, I discovered Kelsey from a SIOP white paper that she wrote back in 2012 called Improving Communication in Virtual Teams. While virtual teams were different and more limited in 2012, I'd be curious how much she thinks things have stayed the same. Dr. Elizabeth Kolmstetter is the Director for Talent Strategy and Engagement in the Office of the Chief Human Capital Officer, also known as a CHICO, at NASA. She has broad responsibilities for talent strategies and programs, including employee engagement, workforce planning, and talent development, people analytics, culture transformation, and studies of the future of work. With over 25 years of public sector service, she has pioneered numerous innovative talent management programs across agencies, including NASA, USAID, CIA, FBI, Office of the Director of National, and the TSA. Dr. Kolmstetter is a fellow of SIOP and received the M. Scott Myers Award for Best Applied Research for SIOP and received the Innovations in Assessment Award from IPMA. She received her PhD and Masters in IO from Virginia Tech and her BA in Psychology and Computer Science from Hollins University. Finally, Dr. Rich Kober, who also, I should mention, serves on our IO advisory board. So thank you for your service. Rich is an HR executive partner in the Chief HR Officers for Gartner. Chief HR Officers is an exclusive member-based organization of the top HR leaders across industries. He brings 20 years of experience working with publicly traded and privately held companies, as well as agencies across the United States government. Most recently, Rich served in an internal HR executive role for HITT contracting, where he led efforts to manage the COVID-19 crisis, as well as modernize their learning and development function with a construction company with 1,150 employees across the U.S. He's also worked for Marriott in various roles. And Rich began his career receiving his PhD in IO from the University of Akron. Rich was a visiting professor at Cleveland State School of Business. In addition to his professional experience, he's published research in the areas of employee recruitment, hiring, and performance management, and in academic journals, had research findings cited for the popular press, and is a regular presenter and chairperson at professional conferences. He's a past president of PTC, as well as the chair for SIOP's Professional Practice Committee. Rich was awarded SIOP's Early Contributions Award in 2014. So let's begin with our questions. Let's just jump right into it. The first two questions will be addressed to Dr. Homestetter and Dr. Klein. How has your organization been dealing with the shift to remote work over the past 10 months in terms of workflows, shifting priorities, performance management, while at the same time being empathetic to what employees are dealing with outside of the job? Elizabeth, why don't you take that first, and then we'll go to Kelsey. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to join this great group this evening on this very important topic that, as you said, we're all living through and living and learning. And I think we learn best by experiences. So we're definitely still learning a lot and figuring things out. For the question, I think I would answer for NASA that we have really done extraordinarily well. We pretty much over the weekend in March went to virtual remote for over 95% of our workforce, as was really mandated for the government to go to the maximum. And that was a big change, obviously, because we are quite a hands-on organization in many ways, but we're also a knowledge worker organization. We're really research and development. And if you think about the kind of work that a lot of knowledge workers do is through technology. So we were able to pivot quite well. We already had the Microsoft Teams, we had Adobe Connect, we had WebEx, we had these tools and we had been using them. We also were very big proponents of telework. So we were already, I would say, on a good place on the learning curve for actually conducting work in this way. So we pretty much just moved in an accelerated pace to do that from wherever we were. I think the biggest thing was the disruption in the personal lives for our people, where they were home and their children were home and their spouses, partners, roommates, all of that living condition, and being really the early time really not able to go out, and we were in very heightened, trying to keep everything clean and safe. So I think for people to just figure out how do they do their work and balance all of that life going on was really the challenge. And I would say that because NASA is very keen on our people, we take care of our people. It's really a cornerstone of our culture that we kept that going. And from the top leaders of our agency, we said, we're going to take care of our people first. And we're going to give hours to people who have personal care situations in their house, that's okay to tend to those needs, and then balance your work when you can and the best way, whatever works for you. And that culture, and then that coming from the senior leadership in every time they had all hands and town halls through the video, they would keep that messaging going. And I think that just kind of gave that it's okay, we're all in this together, nothing's going to go smoothly or as we think the normal. So I'd say that was really key. And then to pivot to successes, celebrating successes for your mission or your organization's purpose really became even more prevalent. And we were really thrilled. I hope some of you joined us on Launch America in May on the 30th when we launched our American astronauts for the first time from American soil since 2011, and for the first time through SpaceX, our commercial partner. And after we were able to do that, given the pandemic and that, at this point, 85% of our workforce is still teleworking, we were still able to do something that we are best at NASA, and that's launching astronauts. That was really incredible. And I think celebrating that, this didn't stop us from doing the really hard, in many ways impossible things that we do. And so celebrating those and saying, if we can do this, we can do anything. We can get through this. So that was really helpful to keep the inspiration and the commitment to our mission and what we're here to do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kelsey, how would you address that at Intel?
Yeah, Elizabeth, I love what you said about the celebrating the wins and the successes. That's, I think it's really wonderful, and it's key because one of the big challenges that our employees have faced and our communities have faced in the last 10 months or so has been, isolation. There's been a lot of concern around mental health, those kinds of things. And I think the successes and the wins and the bringing forth the opportunity to find joy and excitement in things is really, really important. At Intel, we tried to keep sight of two on the surface simple goals, right? Which are really the foundations of both sides of your question, which were employees need to be safe and healthy first, right? We need to make sure our employees are safe and healthy, and we need to keep the business running as successfully as we possibly can. And the safe and healthy piece had a lot to do with flexibility and mental health, like I just mentioned. So in terms of flexibility, we tried to create as much opportunity for flexibility in working arrangements as possible. It's easier for our exempt population, but we also tried to put together resources and opportunities to enable our non-exempt population to be as flexible as they could arrange with their managers as well. We do have a population who are quote unquote essential workers who have to be on site, right? So we had some process things that we offered for them as well, and I'll mention those in just a second. But in terms of the health and safety side, the other piece of it was focusing on mental health offerings. We actually had quite a lot of resources and offerings already available or in the works. And what we did was accelerate that in October around the day that is Mental Health Awareness Day. We had a full campaign launched around normalizing taking advantage of those mental health offerings. It included expanding our employee assistance programs. It included pilots on healthy sleep and coaching opportunities, those sorts of things, and really doubling down on mental health as something that we're offering resources to our employees for. And it's okay and even encouraged for them to seek those resources out. And then in terms of the actual processes of our work and our workflows, we had really two populations to support. So our essential workers, like I mentioned before, who are working on site and needed to continue working on site. So think our fabs, manufacturing environments, our laboratories, those sorts of things. In those environments, we made an effort to hit the highest level of strict protocol to the guidelines that are being set forth by our medical professionals. So increased cleaning, certainly having masks and thermometers present, offering gloves, those sorts of things. We also offered free food. Many of our sites have cafes that our employees pay to eat at. But during COVID, since so many people were stressed, fearful to be out in public, especially early on, we tried to offer as many opportunities to minimize stress and fear as possible. One of those was enabling free food in our cafes for those populations that need to be there. And then for those who are able to work remotely, which was the bulk of our employee population, we went to fully work from home, similar to NASA, basically over the weekend, right? Told everyone, go ahead and get your chairs from your office, your laptops, start working from home. We offered childcare reimbursements as well as reimbursements for office equipment, those kinds of things to enable that transition. And we really accelerated the use of a lot of technologies that were already in place. We also have had a lot of technologies like Teams and other collaborative tools already in our environment. And it really became, in the first 2 months after we started working from home in March, it was a matter of how do we get the IT resources to make sure we have the bandwidth we need, right? Because everyone's online. So that was one of the big hiccups that we had to get over, was the shift from having, 10% of our population at home at any given time to 70%. But IT really doubled down on that, and we were able to get to a point where most of the time our webinars and web access is successful.
Okay. Thank you, Kelsey. The second question I'm going to be addressing to Rich and Elizabeth. We have these questions staggered in a way. Some of the terms that I'm going to use in the question have become parts of our nomenclature. We now have the old normal, pining back to early 2020, the current reality that we might call the new normal, and I would call it the future normal at some point, hopefully in 2021 in the near future. Having experienced the new normal, what will the future normal look like? What aspects of the old normal will be reinstated, and what aspects will be permanently different? So Rich, if you could tackle that first, and then Elizabeth.
Cool. Well, thanks again for having me. So I think that there are, classic social scientist answer, it depends. You have some jobs like construction, manufacturing, retail, where I think as the vaccine spreads, and you can even see it in the southern United States in some areas, you will see crowds back, you will see less social distancing, you'll see less rigorous use of masks and that sort of thing. Things will start to get back to almost, I think, what they were before, in a lot of like daily life activities and in those occupations where otherwise you kind of have to be on site and working with others and that sort of thing. That being said, I think that we are forever changing a lot of the professional landscape and professional services, technology, and other jobs where I think overnight there's been a demonstrated business case that people can work remotely, they can be super productive. There are new tools. I think, I used to work for Marriott, and business travel was a huge part of the business. I think business travel is forever changed. Conferences and events. I work for Gartner now. Gartner does a ton of events and conferences. These all used to be in-person types of things. And now I see lots of opportunities and way more fun in having virtual events that people don't need to fly to, and that you get more participation, more active participation than doing an in-person for a day and having people have to spend another day to get there and to get back and that sort of thing. I think big conferences for all of us, a SIOP conference, like that will come back. But even SIOP this year will be a blended kind of experience. And that kind of gets to like this hybrid environment. And you hear a lot about the hybrid work environment of the future. And I think, companies right now are grappling with, in a lot of cases, whether it's law firms or professional services that might traditionally have like wanted you to be in seat, they're trying to think like, all right, well, our people have been productive. How can we trust that they'll continue to be productive? We did a survey recently at Gartner that showed that there's about a 30% lift in discretionary effort for people that are working remote versus people that have never gone remote. So people will work hard. They can balance a bit of the work-family conflict a little bit more. And I think that's an important consideration for companies that might have traditionally said, no way we're working remote, and now they're rethinking it. I think the other thing that is changing the landscape an awful lot is the idea of location. I've got people that I work with on a daily basis now that if we were a year ago, we would have traditionally gone to a client, sat down, been together, and that sort of thing. Now, one of them's living in Austin, which is the third location since I've met him 6 weeks ago that he has lived in, as he's just sort of touring around and getting Airbnbs and working from wherever. I've got another person in Honduras because her family lives there. And then she went up to Colorado and went skiing and then went back. But they, particularly millennials, seem to be like super happy about the ability to just kind of work from anywhere and be unbridled. And on the flip side, the talent market is opened up for some organizations. And I'm seeing this in the government space for some of my clients where traditionally they've had to hire in the DC area. It's not a great talent pool for some government jobs for technology, given salary restrictions and that sort of thing. Well, now they can think about, like, I'm going to hire somebody in Tulsa and in Omaha or in a lower cost of living market that has same or similar competence. And a lot of their conversations are now, how do we just develop the capabilities and hire maybe remotely and think a lot differently about that. And then I think the employee experience now is something that organizations are going to think about a lot differently as well. If you think of, and Kelsey, you mentioned all the resources around sort of total wellness and mental health. One of the top 3 reasons why chief HR officers right now are thinking about remote work when they might never have a year ago is everybody has kind of gotten the aha, like, we can save a ton of money on commercial real estate costs. And some of that I think is going to be diverted into total wellness, into supporting people getting set up from the home. And then not to mention another controllable travel cost is going to reduce as well. And it opens up a lot of opportunities to think differently about that employment experience. On the flip side, I think there's still a really important, I think this will come back, we've got to have some corporate hubs. You have to have some spaces for collaboration, for culture to happen in person. Humans are inherently social, and we've got great tools. I mean, can you even imagine the pandemic if we didn't have Teams or Zoom or WebEx? I mean, holy cow, it would have been really, really horrible. But we have those now, and they allow for some social interaction, but I think we still like to get together and see each other and that sort of thing. So that's why business travel is not going to go fully away. Corporate spaces are not going to go fully away. But they are going to change. Footprints are going to get smaller. I think some spaces are going to get repurposed in the future. And it's just amazing to see what's happened over the past 12 months to really change society.
Thank you. Elizabeth, how would you?
Yeah, I fully agree with everything Rich just shared. And so I don't want to be repetitive because he really hit a lot of the high points of really, as we're thinking about, and you are right, the terms old normal, new normal, future normal. So for NASA, as studying our engagement of our workforce, we really know that our people get really high engagement because they connect to our mission and they connect to each other. And so we really want to keep that going in our future normal. Is how do we keep connected to our mission? The more remote we're going to be away from our centers where we are doing the hands-on mission work, and connect to each other. And as we're learning and getting more comfortable with the virtual, we really try to keep our cameras on so that we feel like we're looking at each other and we're connecting through this medium. And so that's really important. But I also would say that sort of like a pendulum swings, right? So we've swung to so much, almost 100%, but most people being virtual has created new norms and if we're all virtual, then we're sort of all in this equal place of these things are hard for us. And the things that happen, are just different that we're all virtual. Because if you kind of went from mostly on site to now all mostly virtual, and then when we come back on site, we think that we're going to swing back. We're going to be so excited to see our work families, as we call them, our people. We've been hungry for our social connections, not just our social life, but our work connections. We're very close to people we work with and we miss them. And so we think people are going to want to get back on site and see each other and collaborate and catch up and be together. But then we're not going to end up back there. We're going to come back and find a new happy medium, which is, we've already said we are going to be a hybrid. We're going to be more hybrid, which we're going to have on site and virtual. And that's not what our managers are used to right now. They've gone from being really on site to completely virtual. And now we have to help them start preparing for the hybrid, which means some people are going to be on site and some people are going to be virtual. And so how do we keep meetings engaging and the productivity high, and the things that you read and we study about in the research, which is the things that that humans do, which is build trust. You get more attention if you're in person. There's these connections that our brain is making, and you kind of have that out of sight, out of mind. Well, somebody's right here. I know they're really good at it. I'm going to give them this great assignment, or I'm thinking about giving somebody, an opportunity to do something. And it's going to mean we have to be intentional about those who are virtual also being just as close to being in sight and on the top of mind of our managers. That's just an example of what we're already looking at, moving our training and our preparedness. But employees have to understand there are trade-offs for not being in person. If we're going to hire, and we are doing, as Rich said, more remote hires who are nowhere near one of our space centers and nowhere near their home center. They're not going to be coming in even once a week or once a month. They may be coming in once a quarter if we, decide to offset their office space with some travel money, which we are hoping, and we're trying to do some cost models for that now too, because we are looking at saving some facility costs by people not having office space designated. The other thing is building collaborative space, something that I think, we in the government have been doing for a little while, but now we really have to figure out what those models look like, because we want to be able to have people come on site to do work, but we don't want to have that fixed footprint, the designated offices as much. So we're going to have to figure out how, and then again, make that flexible, because we think this is good. The future normal is going to keep changing in terms of that. I'll also mention that one of the things we're doing is collecting the benefits. We're asking our work units, our teams, what works well for you in this environment? What do you want to keep going that we've learned during this pandemic that we want to continue, just like you said in your question? And one of the things is that we're hearing people are meeting more people from other we have 10 space and research centers around the country. And before, they tended to be more center-centric, and they knew their work units and the people at their center because we're very connected there. They said it doesn't matter what center you're on a video screen, and I didn't even know this person was from Ames Research Center or from Langley or from the Kennedy Space Center. They're saying, I'm seeing less connection to which center you're at and more what mission you're working on or what project you're working on. And so we're seeing more cross-center collaboration and project teams, which we think is a really good thing. And talk about employee experiences. They want new networks and to be on more diverse groups of mission. So we're trying to collect that now so that we can keep that going in the future normal.
Thank you. As you were talking, Elizabeth, you're about your experience at NASA, obviously, as the Chico at NASA. I just had this imagery. You're probably aware of this Netflix series called Away, where the main character
it didn't get renewed. What are we going to do?
Where she's working quite remote from her family. Yes. But also another point I was thinking of is that the pandemic has lasted for, 10 months, 11 months now. And there have been people who, including people I know in my family, who have started new jobs during the pandemic, and they have never met the individuals with whom they're working, the hiring managers or coworkers. They've never met them in person. So, the rush, to go back, it's not like you're rejoining old friends that you've had relationships with. It's going to be, engaging those individuals in the office, in the hub for the first time. That's going to be a challenge for some organizations. I've also heard some millennials say, I'm in no rush to go back to the office, because if they're not encumbered with family responsibilities, then they feel that they might be just getting by just fine. So, all right, let's go to the next question, which I think it's going to be similar to this past question, but I think I'd like to add a little bit more nuance. And this question, I guess, is for Kelsey and Rich. If you have anything to add from the last question. And the question is, employees, especially those in professional jobs, have been forced to work remotely and have needed to become reasonably proficient in doing so using technology. Now, employees may have seen some personal benefits of remote work that might include a reduction of the daily commuting burden, or, as was alluded to before, being location agnostic in general can potentially be a game changer in the quest for talent. Organizations have discovered that the expense of office space can now be significantly reduced, as well as the potential to leverage offering remote work arrangements as a recruitment and retention vehicle. So my question for Kelsey and Rich is, how much of this is a phase, and to what extent will this have a permanent effect, focusing on professional jobs that are, not the hands-on? Kelsey?
Yeah, so these are conversations that we're certainly having at Intel. The opportunities for talent are huge, especially for us as a large global tech company, right? Where we're constantly talking about the war for talent and where we're going to get the best of the best in AI, et cetera, et cetera. And having limited locations where we can hire people certainly has been, I mean, as long as I've been working in analytics, it's something that comes up every year, right? Can we add this location? Can we add that location? Because the best talent in this new technology is there, right? So this is certainly something that we're going to be exploring more, and will add value for the company as well as for the talent market, I think. In terms of the benefits for individuals, I think it goes both ways, right? There are some people who are really thrilled by the fact that they have gained the additional commute time. There are some people who really miss being in the office and being able to have that direct engagement. So actually how I see this playing out in the future is, again, with the hybrid model that Rich and Elizabeth were talking about, right? As the company, as our organization start to formulate a plan for how the hybrid model is going to work for each of us, we'll start to figure out how that's going to play out for individuals as well. And at Intel specifically, we're still working out the details of it, but we do intend to have a true hybrid model where we have a certain portion of the population that's working on site fully. And of course, that would include the people who are working on the hands-on types of jobs, but also any professional types of jobs where the employees choose to opt into being fully on site. Of course, we would welcome that for anyone who wants to do that. And we would find a way to accommodate seating spaces, those kinds of things. A portion of the model would be people who split their time, remote and on-site. And then we would have a small population that's fully virtual. I do not imagine we will reach a point where we have even a quarter of the population that we currently have working fully from home, working from home in the future on a full-time basis. But we will have some portion of our population that fits that kind of a dynamic. I think it's going to be heavily role-based though, right? What are the right roles to have in that kind of a scenario? And that's going to be related to the tasks in the job as well as, the type of job they're in. So think localized sales group. It makes sense to have them virtual, that sort of thing. A couple of other things that I hope are not a phase. One is, COVID, I think this is an extreme understatement, right? But COVID has presented a lot of huge challenges for organizations. It's been tragic for our communities, but there have been bright spots as well, right? And one that has really struck me over and over is it feels to me like we're getting a lot more accepting of offering grace to people and leading with compassion and treating the people that we work with as people first and workers second, right? So if something falls behind or things shift, we're really accommodating, more so than I've seen in the past, right? Just across the board. People feel safer, people feel supported, and they're still really productive, right? And so this mentality that people who work from home are lazy or not doing the work, right? That seems to be a significant mindset shift around the ability to work from home. And I think that is going to last, and I think it's going to help enable the hybrid models in the future.
Let me just interject kind of a comment, and then I'll turn it over to Rich. As you were talking about the tasks, and as somebody who teaches job analysis, we know that when we have tasks that are listed, we get ratings from subject matter experts frequency, criticality, and I would maybe even suggest now adding the extent to which this needs to be done in person, and building that variable component into an equation of workforce planning to determine decisions, let's say for office space, and if there's any savings that can be realized, if there can be a reduction in the amount of office space, shared arrangements, and so forth. So I sometimes I think as a purist, as an IO psychologist, but I think the job analysis can very much take into account this this need to do certain things in person. Obviously, for certain jobs, construction, healthcare, you need to be in person. But for professional jobs, we can ask ourselves, what percentage of this person's job must be done in person, or optimally would be done in person? So it's just an open question. Rich, how would you address this question number 3?
Yeah, man, I think the hybrid work model is here to stay. And I mean, it's a really great opportunity. You think about, even some people that in the past, because maybe a spouse gets a job in another city or what have you, that have to quit working for one employer and, go find another job. Like, those things are kind of now myth busted, that you can't do that, or you can't hang on if you don't want to. So, I think there's just like really, to Kelsey's point, some like silver lining to COVID. We, within days moved from this old economy and this old paradigm of working to a new paradigm, and then kind of fumbled through a couple of months of figuring out how to really make it happen. And the good people at Microsoft and at Slack were doing double time to figure out product enhancements to actually make the products work a little bit better. And now we're at a point where it's so fluid and so easy. I mean, even the session that we're in tonight, go back 5 years, and I think if I was leading, it would be sweating that I'd have some kind of outage or something like that going on, because you got more than 10 people on the line and that sort of thing, or you got echoes. Echoes happen every once in a while still, but like, it's just so much more seamless, and we've really kind of demonstrated that there's a real new normal for work. And I do think whether it's job analysis, workforce, I think there's almost an assumption now for most jobs that what you're talking about is something that can be done in person or remote. And then I think the last, like maybe a different thought is from a talent analytics standpoint, and Kelsey might have more of a perspective on this, given the role that she's in. There is a dark side to the talent analytics game, because for all those boo-hooers on remote work, and they are still out there, in certain sectors, maybe in finance, in legal, construction, for headquarters kinds of positions, there's still like a lack of trust that people, if they're not in the office, are doing what they need, right? And it's typically in maybe an older generation of leader as well that has that paradigm that is sort of stuck. But the dark side of all the analytics is that, well, we can kind of snoop and figure out if people are actually productive and that sort of thing. And I think that there's a whole kind of new wave of thinking about, well, how do we sort of manage, and how do we, in a way that balances sort of privacy, but yet people are employees and you have some obligations to make sure that people are checking in and doing what they're supposed to do and all that. It's almost a new area of talent analytics that I think is inherently kind of interesting. It's very, very touchy, but it's something that just sort of opens up a new domain for IO psychologists who are playing roles of talent analysts and data scientists in organizations. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of unfolds over the next months and years in that space as well.
I think the flip side of when we talk about trust of employees that they're on task, I have heard anecdotally, and I've seen that some employees try to overcompensate for that. And while when we leave the office in a physical sense, we sometimes can proverbially leave our briefcase at the door when we come in the house, the fact that our house is now our office and our office is now our house, we often don't have those, closing time, end of the workday. The end of the workday is kind of fleeting, and it's sometimes chasing a shadow in a way, because there's no like hard stop, because you're always, if you have your computer in your kitchen, it may be dinging at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, some sort of message that you feel compelled to respond to. So I do see that some employees are trying to overcompensate and demonstrate that they are, they're not only not slacking off, but sometimes I think they could take it to an extreme. Our last question is, before we open it up, is really addressed to everybody. So it's our closing question. And that is, based on your experience over the past year, what are some best practices for organizations in maintaining the social fabric of the workplace when employees are working as individuals remotely? Is this making an erroneous assumption that the human element is always critical to effective collaboration? So this is getting into like the little bit of the humanity of it and the social aspect. So let's start with Elizabeth, and then we'll go to Kelsey and Rich for that question.
Yeah, and I hope we can leave some time for some questions from your wonderful participants here. Yeah, I think that we are human beings. There is a human element. I think we're all feeling that we're missing that because of the isolation, and there is something that is missing. So I think we have to understand what that is, and again, lean into making sure that we find those ways to connect, especially, like you said, our new employees who don't already have a social network or don't have those built in because they're new to an organization or new to a unit. There are certainly methods that we can do to bring that person into the fold, if you will, and we're really working on that now. But I'd also say that I'm a little bit more, I believe we're a little bit more agnostic now to whether there's in-person versus virtual caring for our people, because I think that as I've been, even in my own unit, I know more about the pets and the children and the families and the hobbies and the cooking and the meals than I've ever known before. And we've made a concerted effort to, get to know each other and see what's going on, because we're in a lot of places we've got our life going on, and we share that now. We're like, oh, look, I see your, we know the names of all our pets, or the children coming in and having their little crisis, or they're not on their classroom, virtual classroom. So I think it's just that humanity of, we are trying to make this work, and we all start by saying it's okay. I mean, I just was briefing the number 3 of our agency, and her dog was barking so mad. I got to get up and go let my dog out. Sorry to interrupt this briefing, but I got to go do that. I mean, if you have people just being real and being human, and it's like, that's just how we are. I think it just helps us all, see that, and then you make those connections. Oh my gosh, you have that kind of dog. I have that kind of dog. Or you just find those other ways to find those human connections through this, because we have a much more blended work and life. So I think that we are. I guess it is that it's like, it's okay. We expect there to be technical difficulties, and we just pause and we go get a cup of coffee and we come back and it's working again, or whatever you need to do. But I think that's really important, that we say it's real. This is us being real and being authentic, and just embracing that this is our situation. And I think we have to carry that forward in the hybrid model, again, because we don't know what we don't know yet. I think we are all in experimental mode, and we're talking about doing pilots, 6-month pilots, when we come back we're going to have a return to work, and then we're going to have that future normal you talked about. And there's going to be different. We need to learn more and keep learning without thinking we can solve and figure it all out now, because we don't know what we don't know about how people are going to feel, about coming back to work and what that feels like. I've got some teams that are saying, you know what, half of my team is virtual. I'm just going to tell everybody all of our meetings are not going to be in a conference room where half the people are on a phone trying to get their word in, and half the people are going to be, in the room having the meeting without the people. We're going to have all virtual meetings if 50%, or more are not even in the room. Those are the kinds of what are the new norms going to be, so that people feel the same equity, inclusion, and ability to contribute. So that's what we're really, we're trying to find those ways, because that is all part of that human connection and feeling like my contributions are being heard, or, being realized.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can at the end, but I'll ask Kelsey to take the next answer.
Yeah, so I mean, I completely agree with Elizabeth. What underpins collaboration is trust, like we've mentioned several times, right? And any type of collaboration, whether it's in person or virtual, requires you to be trusting the inputs you're getting and the work contributions of the people you're working with. So there's always going to be a human element, regardless of whether or not you're working together. And making sure to foster that is going to produce the best results, right? It comes down to inclusion, like Elizabeth said. The things that I would call out as best practices are first, creating virtual water coolers. I think that's the term of the day. So having always on video meetings, always on call-in lines, or even just preset video meetings or call-ins. My team actually has one, my data science team. Every week they have a couple hours, the team comes together, they're working independently, coding completely independently. But if they have questions or if they just want to talk about life, their other teammates are there to just connect with as they need to. So really creating any type of opportunity for folks to come together a bit more informally and share their work and share their own lives and experiences, I think is really valuable. And taking advantage of the collaboration tools that exist to do that. I think Rich mentioned earlier, if we had been in this scenario 5-10 years ago, things would be a lot different, right? But we have such exciting tools and they're getting better by the day. I mean, I tell you, when I started out using Teams, I wanted to rip my hair out. And then now I couldn't collaborate on a document without Teams because you can synchronously edit documents with your peers at the same time. It's just, it's fantastic. I wish I had had it in grad school. And then the last thing that I would say, and is perhaps a little self-serving, but I'll say it anyway, is don't lose sight of the research. Keep an eye on what you can learn from your employees and what your employees can tell you about their relational or connectedness needs as individuals. And then also pay attention to the industry and the academic research and keep abreast of what we're learning. Because like Elizabeth said, right, we made this shift really fast and there's a lot that we know from the historical research, but we just flipped the switch. So I think there's still a lot to come. And actually, one of the senior research scientists on my team, Michael Harris, was just telling me the other day that it struck him when he was reading a Qualtrics research study that the people who were reporting the lowest well-being in COVID isn't the parents who have their kids at home. It's actually single employees with no dependents. And it's a little bit of a non-intuitive observation for those of us who have been thinking about how do we enable our families to work, right? And I think it just highlights the need for us to not rely on our assumptions or our expectations, but to make sure that we are keeping up with the research, listening to our employees and the people who we're working with.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
Man, I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to that. That was great. Both answers have a lot in there. I mean, I guess to summarize from my perspective, there's an intentionality, I think, that good managers and leaders should have had before the pandemic, but reaching out and connecting with somebody, making sure that you're having team meetings with people. And, I think early on, there was a lot of Zoom happy houring and that sort of thing. And that got a little bit stale and all that. But I don't think what has not gone out of vogue is just having good connection with people and working on a task or what have you. And I did for a while. I was working in an environment where I was going into the office every day as part of when I was working in the construction company, and we had gotten everybody back and we were phased and going in. And I actually found that to be more or less intimate and more guarded, if you will, during these times, because when you're in the office, you got to watch your distance. We actually had people, we were engineered hallway walking. You've got masks on. And so if I'm doing a one-on-one with somebody, I'm not doing my office. I was going to a conference room to sit 15 feet apart. But when I had team meetings and everybody's on a screen and there are no masks, it was a more intimate and kind of better social interaction. So it is interesting how that whole norm has even changed, and even to the point of like, well, in the future, if you have like half the people that are out of the office and half in, are you going to do that conference room meeting and then have like 5 people calling in and having to go through that hell? Probably not anymore. Now you're going to go, hey, let's just do video conference like, you know, we've been doing. It's a much more effective way of having a productive meeting. So I think, you know, those are the opportunities that we've seen. I think that is how things are changing, and it's some of the fundamentals are the same that they were before the pandemic. It's just we have better tools now, you know, to be able to manage and to be able to manage people all over the place.
As you were talking, you know, I tend to be inclined to a quick one-liner or cracking a joke, and when you're wearing a mask and nobody can see you smiling, they don't realize the nuance. Like, you don't have any emoji that's, you know, floating around your mask to indicate that it was a joke. And I do think that being able to see people's faces, assuming they have their cameras on, obviously for tonight we directed for technology purposes, but in a regular meeting, you know, being able to see people's faces as opposed to seeing people in a robotic way walking down the hallway in the direction of our arrows and distancing and things like that. So I do think that, you know, it helped some of our humanity as opposed to going back into the office. So we have a couple questions in the chat, and I'm going to, I guess, use the prerogative to address this first one, which came from David Rudd, one of our faculty members. He teaches human performance technology for our program, and his question I'm going to address to Kelsey, because maybe there's some metrics or studies on this. How has employee performance changed during this new normal? Are employees more or less productive? How are employee performance issues addressed in the virtual environment? So maybe if there are any studies that have looked at any productivity metrics that you studied at Intel or you know about, overall, are we more or less productive?
Oh man, I wish that I could answer that. So we actually haven't done much in the way of direct studies on this at Intel. In fact, we've been, you know, we have emphasized we still need to deliver our, you know, our manufacturing goals, to our design roadmaps, those sorts of things. And we have been, as an organization, successful in moving forward. In this year, we have had some setbacks as well, although I wouldn't attribute them to sort of individuals' changes in working scenario, right? They've been kind of a long time coming. So we don't actually have research on this. If anyone does, I would love to see it. I think it's going to take us some time to be able to actually speak to the productivity with data. What I will say about this is, you know, it's been a really difficult year for a lot of people. And so what we've been trying to do is encourage our managers, I know I mentioned giving grace earlier, but to be understanding of the work environment. So I think we've actually tried to attend a little bit less to, you know, is Kelsey as an individual meeting all of her goals and targets? And is she being productive? To, is our team's work and is our organization's work meeting our intended goals, which is a little bit less like the worker productivity types of questions we've asked in the past. And with that, we have actually been seeing still, you know, the team productivity standing up to the test of COVID. But I think it's going to take us a bit of time to get really good studies on whether or not people have been more or less productive in the last 10 months or so.
Thank you. This is an interesting question. I think an important one. This came from Rebecca. Do you feel that the increased use of virtual workplaces will make it easier to accommodate some people with disabilities? So I don't know. I see both Elizabeth and Rich nodding. So maybe let me put it over to Elizabeth. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, of course. I mean, I think that similar to what we said, we could be tapping new talent markets in different locations. We can be tapping new talent markets who, you know, may have had a disability or medical condition that didn't allow them to, leave their home or leave their, a place where they could get they were getting medical care, but they could, do the work via, computer like this. So I think there is a lot of opportunity. There's also a lot of opportunity to reduce discrimination or, the unconscious biases, because you don't see quite as much. You don't see the person's is in a wheelchair. You wouldn't see, something like that necessarily in the video. We have heard, a lot going on with diversity and inclusion, and, trying to understand and make sure that we are making sure we're, very intentionally inclusive in these video meetings, because if you don't turn your camera on and you're just a little dot somewhere, you may not, be asked to contribute or ask for a question. So, I mean, a similar thing, you have to still think about it and make sure that the tool is a good, method. And I know that we've got a lot of people that need, special tools for their accommodations, reasonable accommodations that we've been able to do. But I think that I haven't looked at any of the information we've gotten from our own employees, but I know that we've talked about, again, in some cases, like we don't have that many, medical requirements for jobs at NASA, but in other agencies that I've been in where we have, they can look at those and make sure that, again, if somebody doesn't have to come into the workplace, that could open up more opportunities.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. My colleague, Erin Van Dyke, first thanks us for this excellent discussion. She says, I oversee a graduate program for health information technology, and our adjunct faculty work in healthcare. Obviously, they have many stressors during this time in their clinical positions. Most are feeling burnt out, and I'm concerned about the long-term sustainability and talent retention. Are there any best practices on how the team can support them and prevent adding to their burnout? So obviously high stress positions, they have always been subject to burnout. There may be some strategies for that, but now it's sort of beyond stressors at times with COVID and what's going on in hospitals. Rich, I don't know if you have any, since I kind of you're the last person on the. I don't know if you have any.
There's a lot of research out there, and there's a lot of practices that are being tried. And I think that, Liz and Kelsey talked about some of them earlier in terms of providing more flexibility, thinking about scheduling a bit differently, thinking about deadlines a bit differently. Many employers are providing so many more mental health resources than they have in the past. Leaders, I think, play a really critical role in this in terms of talking about and being open about issues that they may be having. It's one thing for somebody to be highly anxious, burnt out, kind of get through day to day and then do it themselves. But if they hear a senior vice president or even a CEO talking about how they're feeling kind of the same way, that changes the narrative of conversations. And in some organizations where perhaps there's a lot more like bucket up and just keep going, it's even more important for leaders to play that role and to sort of destigmatize mental health issues and then be more open about those conversations. I feel like that's a silver lining of 2020, is that there's been an awful lot of acknowledgement of that and a different perspective, I think, across most workplaces about conversations to have, giving people a little bit of a break and some grace, and leading a lot differently when it comes to those kinds of issues than in the past.
We actually had to proactively do this because of the travel restrictions. People didn't take summer vacations. And our pulse surveys are showing the burnout and the stress, just the burnout, just the non-sustained. So I just suggest that, we actually pushed out to our supervisors what leave their employees had taken or not taken, and said, you have got to talk to people and say, take a break, and tell them to turn off their computer, shut it down, put it in another room so they don't check their emails. And we instituted Quiet Fridays every other Friday, no meetings, so that you can take it off and not feel like you're going to be left out, or you can literally catch up on whatever you need to do. But no meeting Fridays, quiet Fridays. I know you're talking about healthcare, clinical positions, but anything like that, I agree with Rich. Management has to step in and help say it's okay and create those actual spaces and places for people to disconnect and take a break.
Sometimes I've seen that when management itself displays its own vulnerability to their employees, that goes a long way for empathy. Because sometimes, in addition to what's going on at work, in addition to what's going on at home, they also have the management responsibilities for their staff, and that's also, very, very stressful on them. Okay, well, I have accomplished something that I'm very proud of, that we started on time and that we are ending this segment on time at 7 o'clock. So I know that there are different groups on this call. Some of you were here just for this fantastic panel discussion. So I thank you for joining us. Others are interested in our Masters of IO Psychology program. So if you are staying on, I am staying on the line for that. But once again, I thank our great panel of Elizabeth, Kelsey, and Rich. You were great since I asked you to do this, and very accommodating, and I very much appreciate it. Certainly, Rich, with your service to the advisory board. And I look forward to seeing you, whether it's at a virtual hybrid PSYOP or other professional meeting, or hopefully in person real soon. So thank you very much, and have a good evening. Have a good evening. And like I said, I'm staying on the line. I guess I don't know if you're continuing the recording, Karina, but do as you wish. But I'm staying on the line. Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody.
Are you ready for me to pull up the presentation?
Yes, please. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so for those of you who have stayed on, it's my assumption that you are interested in learning more about our program. For those of you who are interested in our program, I think that what you've just seen tonight is an example of some of the experiential opportunities that we try to bring to our students. Obviously, we do quite a bit in our classroom, but we are very much an applied program, and allowing a space, allowing a forum for professional development to learn new things, especially in a new era, connecting with other people, with colleagues, is really a feature of our program that I take a lot of pride in. As an MPS program in IO psychology, we are designed for working adults, which means that many of our students have had work experience, some have had management experience, but many, if not most, of our students are working sometimes full-time, with the exception of our international students. So if you are an international student, you're a little bit in a little bit of a different trajectory and category within our program. But in terms of the structure of our courses are run in the evening. I'd like to say that they are in person at our universities at Shady Grove, and that was the old normal, but hopefully getting back to the future normal. But at least for now, for the spring semester coming up, not clear about the summer. But if you're interested in our program, it's my hope that by the end of 2021, in the fall, that we will be back, at least in some measure, in person. The classes are 3 credits. We'll see the credit allotment in a slide or two. But if a student takes 2 courses a semester, that is 2 evenings a week. Simple math. 2 classes, each class meets once a week. Our curriculum is made up of 2 categories of courses. One we call core courses, which are foundational. and the other are elective specialty courses that allow students to choose their area of focus, their area of specialty. And for some students, they might be interested in going into consulting. Others might be interested in going into HR management. Others might be interested in learning and development. So our courses, because we have a large student body, we're able to offer a wide array of courses that will match students' interests and career objectives. The experiential components are really a feature of our program, one of which tonight we had the opportunity to hear from people that I know from PSYOP and PTC. That's my connection to them. We have an advisory board, which is made up of 12 of our 12 individuals who are really outstanding HR and IO psychology leaders. And part of what they do is they provide mentorship each semester. Each advisory board member will take 2 students under his or her wing and just really be able to talk about career stuff. And we send out a survey at the beginning of each semester asking for students to self-select which advisory board member you'd like to be paired with. I would encourage you to go to the website after tonight, and you can see the list of advisory board members to see what industries they come from and what experiences they've had. And it allows our students to say, hey, I want to be paired up with that individual this semester, and next semester I'll take someone else. Another aspect of our program is our Capstone Experience, which is our final semester course, which is essentially a consulting project that our student will do under the direction and advisement of an instructor, where they will do a consulting project in an actual organization. Many times it's the organization in which they currently work, and it's a consulting project. It could be a job analysis, it could be a strategic plan, developing a training program. It really is up to what the student is interested in. But once again, that is in lieu of a master's thesis. So we're not a thesis-based master's program. We have an optional practicum for students that want to get direct guidance in an organization under a senior HR person. That would last the semester, obviously different requirements than the capstone. But we try to make other opportunities available, whether it's a PTC consulting competition, or we've had opportunities for assessment center work down in Alabama, where students can get flown down and get put up at a hotel and be participants in an assessment center for a week. So that's really an exciting opportunity that we put out to our students, as well as internships and jobs, not just when students are students, but also when they turn into alumni. We keep them on our radar screen, and we constantly will provide for them opportunities for jobs or even internships. Next slide, please. Karina, am I supposed to? Okay, thank you. Just looking at the 2 categories, as I mentioned, we have core and specialty courses. Our curriculum is made up of 30 credits. Okay, so that means 10 courses, 5 from the core, which we'll see, I guess, in the next slide. I'm not sure. I may not have it on this slide, but certainly we can send that to you, the exact courses and when they're offered. All the course names and descriptions are on our website. That's umbc.edu/io. So it's 5 core courses for specialty and 1 capstone. That adds up to the 10 courses or 30 credits. Okay, next slide, please. We are now in application season for 2021. Fall admits. Our application season goes through May the 15th, and the application materials that we expect to see before an application is considered to be complete includes the online application. That's the standard graduate school application. A goal statement that tells us what you're looking to get out of the program and what you've done in the past and how the 2 align, and how what we can provide you in the classroom and experientially aligns with your professional trajectory in terms of getting jobs in HR or IO. We do ask to see what type of work history that you've had. We have a form, or if you want to furnish a resume as another option, as well as academic transcripts, of course. We are a master's program. Okay, and also three references, which will include a rating form that the reference will fill out, as well as a narrative explanation of why you will be a potentially good student in our program. The prerequisites for those who have well, let me start from the beginning. The requirements are a bachelor's degree. For psych majors, it's pretty easy. They'll already have the prerequisites, but for people that did not major in psychology, the two courses that we look for are intro or research methods or statistics, as well as some work experience. Okay, some level of work experience we look for as prerequisites. We take a holistic approach and we look at really everything, and we will look at all the factors that are included in the materials and make our decision. We aim to make decisions within about 2 weeks of a completed application. So an application can be started while you're gathering materials, but we don't review the application until the entire portfolio has been completed. Once the portfolio is completed, we get notified, and then that kind of puts us on the clock. We try our best to get a decision back in 2 weeks from the time of the completed application. Our application season has started officially from November. It ends May 15th. And in terms of our start of the program, it really starts off with an orientation that takes place in June. We have a kind of a refresher boot camp in August, and then the courses actually begin right before Labor Day, So that's sort of what you can expect as far as the application season. Dr. Abad, my colleague, you're muted. I think you're muted. All right, let me see if I need to unmute you. You are the co-host, so you should be. You can't. I don't think I can hear you. All right. Oh, there we go. Yes, yes.
Okay, for some reason my headphones are. So what I wanted to just mention in terms of like the deadline, in terms of when you plan on applying. So as Dr. Lasson mentioned, as soon as you get in your application, we review the applications on sort of a rolling basis. So while we do have a deadline of May, I guess 15th, that's when everything has to be in. So kind of plan in advance. So for example, if it might take some time for you to get references, kind of plan that into your schedule, because we really do need everything, including the references by that due date.
Thank you. So yes, that's an excellent point. Oftentimes we get questions at the last minute. Oh, I'm still waiting on a reference. Yeah, well, if you started the application on May the 14th, it'll be a little unrealistic to get all your ducks in a row for a completed application by May the 15th. So for all the people on the call that are interested, at least get started with the application. You'll find that it is streamlined. It is a new, totally online application, so it's hopefully more user-friendly than the old normal, as I mentioned before. And you'll find it to be easy. It really, as far as the goal statement, obviously that'll take a little bit of time. The rest is really just gathering the information, gathering the pieces to put into the portfolio. The references probably would take maybe the most time because you're relying on 3 different people. Transcripts usually are pretty easy to get. So give yourself enough time. That's a great point. Karina, next slide, please. think that might be it. Okay, yeah, this is the last slide. The contact information, I alluded to the website, which is on the bottom of this slide, but anything that has to do with the application, any technical questions, any technological glitches that you experience, the mailbox that you would use is the one in the left arrow. And if there's any question on the academic side, Dr. Abad and I are certainly open to responding to different questions. We often do get questions from prospective applicants. Sometimes the questions come in the form of, can you connect me with a current student? Can you connect me with an alum of your program? And we're happy to do that as well. But sometimes the questions will really relate to academic plan and career trajectory and type of courses that you want to take. Dr. Abad and I really serve as the advisors for the entire program. Depending on the first letter of your last name, you're assigned to one of us, and we respond to questions throughout the student's journey in the program, as well as in advance. So now, I don't know if anybody who's on the line right now has any questions. If you want to put those questions into the chat, we can take them at this time. I know this session is being recorded, so there might be others that might have questions after you're listening, and certainly reach out to us at that time. Okay. Rena, I don't see any questions in the chat. So I think that was the last slide, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I will bid everyone a good evening. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to
Thank you very much.
seeing you and hearing from you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. You can stop
Thank
the
you,
recording.
Karina.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Great job, Karina. See you later.
Thanks, Steve. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye.